Good day, everyone. I'm going to share to you right now how to write the literature review section of your journal article. If you remember during our first tutorial, I, I shared how to write the introduction of your journal article. But specifically, we are writing a descriptive study, a journal article for a descriptive study. In the future, I will be making tutorials on how to write journal articles using correlational research. But right now, I am teaching you how to write a journal article using a descriptive type of study. So, if you remember, the working title of our study is our sample study, hypothetical study. This is just hypotheticals. The figures here and the figures, the tables are hypothetical. They are not true. No, they are not true. Uh, I have just made them up. So the working title is Hotspots, Times, and Targets of Robberies in Dumaguete City, Negros Oriental. So let us write a literature review or review of literature for this study. So if we write a literature review, we must determine what is the applicable theory or theories for the study. So we need to analyze what is this study about. What are the important variables in this study? So we can see that we have hotspots, hot times, and hot targets or products or hot goods. No, those items that are frequently stolen during robberies. So, and the crime is robbery. So if we analyze this, we will choose among what theories in criminology that could explain this emergence of the patterns of robberies. So what will be the theories that could explain the patterns of robberies in space, in time, and among the frequent targets of robberies? So if you analyze, most likely it's not differential association theory, because differential association theory just talks about who your friends are, and if you know who your friends are, so you know who you are. Then what if social learning theory? So it's not about social learning theory. So how about self-control theory? No, it's all about self-control. How about anomy theory? No, not anomy, because it is social research, but we are particularly focusing on opportunity theories, about hot spots, hot times, hot targets. Uh, when do we see patterns like this, and what could explain these patterns? So probably we will go to environmental criminology, about the criminogenic environments and the the situation within which crimes tend to converge in space and time and targets. So environmental criminology, that is the focus. This is the perspective, and the theories within that perspective, we call them opportunity theories. So let us start. What is environmental criminology? So first, no, so we have already decided the perspective and the theories that we use within this perspective. So first paragraph of your literature review should be about the perspective, the environmental criminology. Or if you, in your other studies, if you use another perspective, like social environmental perspective or individualistic perspective, so you can discuss them in the first paragraph. But you can omit this. But in our hypothetical study, it is important to explain what perspective are these opportunity theories are within. So then after the perspective, we discuss the first theory, because in this perspective, we have three complementing theories. We have the rational choice perspective, then we have also the routine activity theory, then we have also the crime pattern theory. So that's it. So that's four paragraphs within the theoretical framework portion of our journal article. So let us now start writing. But before that, I assume that you have already read, no, your theory. You have already read the articles about your theory, the books about your theory. So I advise you to read before you write, because you cannot write without reading. So you read the journal articles about your theory. It's just so simple. You just search in the Google Scholar. This is the environment that I have been using, Google Scholar. Then also Google, but when I search for theories, I go to Google Scholar. So for example, we search environmental criminology. So we see here we have the first book, no? The first search, the item that came out from our search, no, the book by Brantingham and Brantingham. So environmental criminology. Then if you have downloaded it, you can read it. Then we have also here, no, they have their book chapter, no, environmental criminology from theory to planning and practice. Then we have other works on environmental criminology. Then here we can also see the edited book of Wortley and Mazerol. I have read this book already. So we can cite this. It contains the works also of Brantingham and Brantingham. So the environmental criminology. So you can read everything. So let us start writing. So let's start. So we can say, so the first paragraph about our perspective is comprised of these parts: general assertion, then general assertion of the environmental criminology, then description of environmental criminology, then the theories included in this perspective. So first we can say that robberies may be, or or environmental criminology can be used to explain the patterns of robberies in time, space, and targets. So that's the first sentence. So just an overview, not just a general assertion that we can explain robbery using the perspective of the environmental criminology and the theories within this perspective. So we can add environmental criminology and the theories within this perspective can be used to explain the patterns of robberies in time, space, and targets. So here, this perspective uses the person, environment, or person situation analysis in explaining crimes. Specifically, so we go now to the description. So the specific description of how does environmental criminology explain crime. Specifically, the perspective uses criminogenic environments and situations to explain patterns of crimes. And instead of focusing on the offender, it focuses on the nature of crimes. Using this perspective is important in visualizing the where and so before you write now, my advice is for you to read more. Read. Step one is read. Step two is read. So you read everything that you need to know about your theory, about your study, so that there will be consistency all throughout. So that when you write, you can write smoothly, straightforwardly, without much stopping. So where and when of crimes. There are so the last sentence of this paragraph, we will now introduce the theories that we will use in our study, hypothetical study. There are three complementing theories within this perspective that we can use to explain the patterns of crime. So that's our first draft of our first paragraph. So there you go. There you go. You have already your first paragraph. So let's now go to the first theory. So the first theory is the rational choice perspective. By the way, we can also enumerate them here in the first paragraph. So we can enumerate them. So there are three complementary theories within this perspective that we can use to explain the patterns of crime. Rational choice perspective, routine activity approach, and the crime pattern theory. So then we can cite the work of here we can cite the work of Wortley and Mazzero, because this is the latest collection of works on environmental criminology. So again, you just click cite, here click cite, then this will appear. Now it's incomplete, but you can complete it later. Now it's incomplete because here the Google Scholar just included the names of the authors, the date, the title of the edited book, but no publisher and the place of publication. But you can complete it later. Anyway, this is just a draft, so you just copy that. Now let's go to our references. Let's copy it again. It's a problem in copying and paste. Then you have now your entry in the reference list for Wortley et al. So cite this, go back. So where shall we put this here? So environmental so it's advisable to place the citation at the beginning. So here Wortley et al. 2008. So you have now the citation and the reference list entry. Let's go to the first theory, the rational choice perspective. Rational choice perspective. So the first, oh no, rational choice perspective theorizes that offenders are crimes and their offenders are rational and purposive in nature. So rational and purposive in nature. In particular, offenders, I know this is already a specific description of the theory. No, so we include it here. So in particular, offender rationally weighs the risks, the benefits, risks and benefits in committing a particular crime. Offenders weigh the risk and benefits in committing a particular crime. They tend to choose the most appropriate time, place, and methods in to ensure the success of their crimes, the success in committing, or the success of their crimes. Then, so after this, you can include the past research that supports this theory. So you can search here. Oh, by the way, we should cite rational choice perspective. Rational choice perspective. You can search here in Google Scholar. So Cornish, by Cornish and Clark. So these were the theorists of this perspective. So we have here the list of the works of the list generated by the Google Scholar on the works of Cornish and Clark. So we have here the book chapter of Cornish and Clark in Environmental Criminology book that we have just cited earlier. Then we have also their one of their original works in the journal Criminology. So we can cite this. So entitled Understanding Crime Displacement and Application of Rational Choice Theory. Then we have here Crime as a Rational Choice. Then we have also their book, The Reasoning Criminal. So we the best work that we can cite is this work, their original work by Cornish and Clark. So the recent edition of their book is published in 2014. So let us cite this. So click cite. So remember, you have the search result, the title of the work, then the author, then at the bottom we have save, cite, cited by. So this counts the number of citations, the number of papers or books that have cited the work of Cornish and Clark. We have also related articles, then the versions of this work. So you just click cite if you want to cite the article. We have learned this already in the past the past tutorial that we had. So still it's incomplete because Google Scholar does not include normally does not include the publisher, then the place of publication. So we can include it later. Just later we can search it. So I'll demonstrate it. So Cornish and Clark, so we can, let's go to our references, Cornish. So we insert it here, letter C, Cornish. Then increase the size, Cornish and Clark. Copy. By the way, what if we include, let's go back, what if we include the publisher? So the publisher and the place of publication and the publisher. So let's make it complete. So you can do this by going to the work itself. So just click open link in new tab to see the place of publication and the publisher, then include it in our citation. So let's scroll. So we go to the copyright page. So new material, this edition copyright 2014 by Transaction Publishers, New Brunswick, New Jersey. So it was published in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the 2014 edition. So we include here New Brunswick, New Jersey. So just the initial New Jersey. And what is the publisher? Transaction Publishers. Transaction Publishers. Transaction Publishers, period. So we have the author. This is how you cite a book. Then we have the title of the book. Then we have the publisher. Then no, the place of publication. Then the publisher. Now let's go back to Wordly because we omitted, the Google Scholar omitted the place of publication and the publisher also of this book, but we need to complete it. So we have the authors of the edited work, then we have the title of the book, so minus the place of publication and the publisher. So let's go back to this work so that we will not forget it. So just click it, click the work so that we can see the place of publication. It was downloaded, so we will not open that, but let's go to the other versions. Let's look for the Google Scholar entry. By the way, so this is so we have discovered that it has the newest version, 2016 version. So we can change that citation into 2016. So the first publication was in 2008. Then the second publication was in 2017. But the same publication. Second publication by Routledge in Abingdon, Oxon. So let's use this. Abingdon, Oxon, Routledge is the publisher. Routledge. Then the place of publication, Abingdon, Oxon. Then 2017. So let's change that. So let's just suppose that we have already read it. So 2017, environmental criminology and crime analysis, Abingdon, Oxon. Then the publisher is Routledge. Okay, there you go. You have now a complete citation. So let's change the citation into 2017, Wortley et al. 2017. So here we cite Cornish and Clark 2014. Cornish and Clark 2014. Cornish and Clark 2014. I don't know what happened here. Oh yeah, that's correct. So Cornish and Clark 2014. So we have now a citation for this paragraph. Now let's go to past research that supports the theory. So rational choice. So you can search rational choice perspective, Cornish and Clark research. So for example, one example of the research that use the perspective is the research by Corbett and Simon in year published in year 1992. But we can search for more recent articles. We have also here understanding offense specialization and versatility, reapplication of rational choice perspective, successful criminals, rational choice perspective on targets of automobile theft. So, or you can also limit your search the year, because if you don't want to include 1990s, you only want to include year 2000. For example, we can limit the search from 2018 up until now. So you can click since 2018. So there you go. So we have perceived arrest risk, psychic rewards, offense visualization, a partial test of the rational choice theory. So we can use this. Then understanding site selection of illegal border crossing in a fence protected area. Then we have also here uncertainty and heuristics in offender decision making, deviations from rational choice. So it presents a different type of evidence. No, it deviates from rational choice perspective. So we can use this as a study that produced or a study that is contrary to the theory. Then here also another study, rational choice or strain, a criminology examination of contract cheating. So let us start. So we can start with the first. If you remember, we found one study, no, by Cornish and Clark, understanding crime displacement. Oh, we found a study in 1992. Oh yes, this one. To break decisions to break or adhere to the rules on the road viewed from the rational choice perspective. So let's just suppose that we have already read this article. So I suppose that when you write, you have already read your articles. You should not write before you have not yet read your articles. So let's go. So past research have generally supported the contentions of this theory. For example, so you cite a sample study. Past part research. So let's edit this. Past research has generally supported or research. You don't need to mention past. So just research. For example, so let's cite this, that one of the earliest studies, study by Corbett and Simon. Copy the citation. Go to your references, Corbett. So place it here, insert, just insert. Paste, increase the size. So Corbett and Simon, decisions to break or adhere to the rules on the road. Corbett and Simon. Corbett and Simon. For example, Corbett and Simon, 1992. Found that decisions to follow rules on the road were rational in nature. Decisions to follow or not the rules on the road were rational in nature. Then you also cite the string of other studies succeeding the theory is also supported by findings on. So let's go to more recent research. So you click the since 2018. You can also customize the range. So you can also write here since 2010. Then click search. So from 2010. So these are the studies. But let's go to 2018. So let's assume that we have already read this article. So it's all about understanding site selection of illegal border crossings in a fence protected area. So a rational choice approach. So cite, copy the citation, then go to your article. So supported by findings on illegal border crossings in site selection of illegal border crossings on site selections of illegal border crossings. Then right here Van Dormal et al. No, just parenthetical citation. We use the parenthetical citation, not the narrative this time. So first we use the narrative type so that the name of the authors are outside the parenthesis. So Corbett and Simon. Then what's inside the parenthesis is only the year. But in statements like this, where we do not mention the name of the author, so the name of the author should be inside the parenthesis, just like this. So Van Dormal et al. 2018. Then we cut this citation. Let's go to our list of references. So after T, you insert here the V, van normal. Then increase the size. So you have now the entry for this citation. Let's go back. What else? So we have the theory is also supported by findings on site selection of illegal border crossings. Then we can also cite a rational choice analysis of ISIS Mujahid in becoming cyber jihadist. So we can cite this study, about the choice of ISIS Mujahid in becoming cyber jihadist. So they were rational in nature. So you can cite that to support the theory. So site selection of illegal border crossings, then the choice of ISIS Mujahid in becoming cyber jihadists. Then use parenthetical citation, Golosi 2021. Then let's bring this reference list entry to where it belongs. Insert it here, Golosi. There you go. Then let's go back. Then you can also add another one. Let's add another one. So perceived risk here. This one. We saw it earlier. Study by Thomas. So we can cite it. So it's all about property offending. You can, so let's just assume that we have read it. So, and what's this study all about? And rational perception of arrest risk, psychic rewards, and offense specialization. Then use parenthetical citation this time because you're not mentioning the names of the authors. Thomas et al. 2020. Then let's bring this entry to our list of references. Thomas. So you place it here. Increase the size. Then go back to your... So we have already the first theory. Now let's go to the second theory. The second theory is the routine activity approach by Cohen and Felson. So routine activity approach. So it's all the routine activity approach says that crimes happen when a motivated offender converges with a suitable target in the absence of a capable guardian. So we can state it like this. Crimes typically occur when rational rational and motivated offenders converge in space and time with suitable targets in the absence of capable guardians. This is a specific, by the way, this is specific assertion. So you can the next theory. So you can write here the introduction. The next theory that explain the patterns of crime in space and time and targets, delete and here, time and targets, comma, is the routine activity approach. Felson wants to call it approach. Now the author, one of the authors of this theory, Felson, he wants the theory to be called just an approach, not a theory. So routine activity approach. So according to this theory, crimes typically occur when rational motivated offenders converge in space and time with suitable targets. So when a motivated offender was already planned to commit robbery, has converged with a very suitable target, a target that has possessions in himself or herself. In the absence of capable guardians, there are no police around or no security guards around, or no locks, no security features installed in a particular establishment. Then typically crime may occur. So let's cite the routine activity. So routine activity approach, Cohen, Felson. So these are the authors, Cohen and Felson. The search limit is since 2018, so let's remove that. Let's just click anytime. So click anytime. So this is the original work of Cohen and Felson when they made the routine activity approach. Now you look at the title, it's routine activity approach. That is why Felson wants us to call the theory not a theory but an approach. So just click cite, then use APA. This is our citation format that we are using. Then go back to your work. So cite here Cohen and Felson, 1979. Then move this entry Cohen. Okay, here increase the size. You have now the entry for Cohen and Felson. Then search also the past research or the previous research that supports the theory. So routine activity approach, Cohen, Felson, research. Or test. This one. Hotspots of predatory crimes. So one of the earliest tests of the theory, hotspots of predatory crimes. This is a seminal paper by Sherman et al. About hotspots. So let us see. Then we have also here McNally. Then test by Groff. So let's cite just the three. No, just the three. This is just an example. You can read more. No, you can read more to cite more studies. Just an example. So let's cite this seminal paper by Sherman et al. This is one of the best papers and one of the earliest, if not the earliest papers to test, no, to examine the spatial aspects of crimes. No, they examine the hotspots of predatory crimes by Sherman et al. So this is a seminal work. So you can state that in a seminal work of Sherman, or you can state it in their seminal study, Sherman et al. 1989. So we are using a narrative type of citation. Narrative type, not the parenthetical type. This one, parenthetical. So the name and the year are inside the parentheses. But in a narrative type of citation, the name is outside, but only the year is inside the parentheses. So in their seminal study, Sherman found that 50% of robberies, for example, robberies and other predatory crimes occurred in occurred occurred in 3% of the street addresses of what city is this? So we can cite also the city. So we can read what city they were studying. Minneapolis. So you can state it here, Minneapolis. So let's go back. Addresses of Minneapolis. And move the citation to the reference list. Increase size and go back again. Then more recent research found support for the theory. More recent research also found support for the theory. So what was that study? Lifestyle, routine activities, and crime events. On lifestyles, on offender lifestyles, and crime events. Copy. It was McNally. 2015. And move this citation again. P. Increase the size. McNally. What else? McNally. Here. Adding temporal and special aspects of routine activities. So what are the crimes studied by this study? So let us look. What study? What are the crimes studied by this? Street robbery. Okay, so it studies street robbery. So let's just imagine that we have read already the paper. Now in your actual study, you must read the actual paper. This is just a hypothetical one, huh? So also found support for the theory on offender lifestyle and crime events and uh, spatial and temporal patterns of robbery. So by Grove 2008. So move this to our reference list. Grove. Letter G. Increase the size. Okay, let's go. What else? Lifestyle, capable guardian, hotspots. I think that will be all for this time. So in order not to waste time, so you can add more research now, by the way, in your actual study. Now let's go to theory 3, the crime pattern theory by Brantingham and Brantingham. So this theory talks about uh, the individuals, whether criminal or non-criminal, they have routine travel route, and then when these routine travel routes of criminals and non-criminals traverse or converge, so crime may typically occur. So lastly, because this is the last theory that we are going to describe here, lastly, crimes tend to converge in space and time where routine routines where offenders and non-offenders frequently converge. Frequently converge. These places are called crime generators and crime attractors. Crime, according to this theory, crime generators are places that are places that are not inherently criminogenic, but nevertheless attract numerous people, like malls, schools, and the like. On the other hand, crime attractors are criminogenic in nature, like bars, drug dens, uh, and the like. Okay, now let's cite Brantingham and Brantingham. So let's go to Google Scholar. Brantingham, crime pattern theory, Brantingham. So let's cite this, the geometry of crime pattern theory. And we have also other works, there are works. So let's cite this one. This was included in the book that we have cited earlier, the Environmental Criminology and Crime Analysis book. So cite it. So Brantingham and Brantingham, comma 2016. So it's a parenthetical citation. So cut that. Let's go to, okay, so increase the size. So let's go back to our work. Oh no, general description. So cut it and place it here. Specific description. Now let's go to the last portion, the past research supporting the theory. So crime pattern theory, Brantingham research test. So these are the keywords. So, does configuration of street network influence where outdoor serious violence takes place? Using space syntax to test crime pattern theory. So this we'll cite this. This is highly relevant. Right place and right time, making crime pattern theory time specific. We can also cite that. The geometry, this is the work of Brantingham themselves. Leveraging mobility flows from location technology platforms to test crime pattern theory in large cities. That's another one. This one also. So let us start. So you can cite this. Researchers found that the theory is applicable in explaining crimes. For example, Summers and Johnson. Summers and Johnson, 2017, found that street network influenced where outdoor serious violence take took place. Other studies like other studies let's transfer these summers to here. Increase the size. Let's go back to our work. About to finish. Summers, right place, right time. So let's cite this also. By Von Slewin. Copy that and go back to work. Like Van. Other studies of Van Slewin et al. Also support the theory. So let's add another study. What else? This one, this study by Kadar. Kadar et al. Other studies of Van and Kadar et al. 2020 also support the theory. So let's just stop with that. Okay. Now let's go to our reference list. Kadar. But we need to transfer Von Slewin to the bottom portion because this letter B here. Von Slewin. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have already the first portion, the theoretical framework of our study, starting with the perspective, going to the first theory, then second theory, and the third theory. The first theory, the rational choice perspective. The second theory, the routine activity approach. Then the third theory, the crime pattern theory. But you can still edit your work. This is just a draft, first draft. You can edit, you can add more theories, you can delete other theories, you can emphasize on more some points, and so on and so forth. Now let's go to the review of research on robbery. Now this is where we will find the gap in the past research, where we situate our current research. So let's go to patterns of robbery. So earlier we discussed about the theory. So these are the specific research, no, that supports the theory. Now we go to the specific research on robbery, no, the hotspots. So we have already established the foundation of our succeeding review of research on robbery. No? So we focus on studies on environmental criminology and robbery. So we have three topics, right, in our study: hotspots, the three variables; hot times, so when do they frequently occur; then hot products or hot items or hot goods. So these are the three. Now we will also review the studies of robbery in the Philippines. So the overview of robbery in the Philippines, then individual and social studies of robbery in the Philippines, then the opportunity perspective used in the study of robbery in the Philippines. Now let's go to the hotspots of robbery. So previous research, or you can start by robbery or supporting environmental criminology perspective. Robberies tend to cluster in space, time, and targets. Okay. Space, time, and targets. So, or you can just a space, no, because it's hotspot only in space. So that's your that's your general statement. Robberies tend to produce hotspots or places where robberies are non-randomly distributed. Then we can cite one study about this. So robbery, so robbery hotspots. We search here hotspots. Robbery hotspots. So we have this one study, dynamics of robbery and violence hotspots. Then understanding predictors of street robbery hotspots. Hotspots of crime, criminal careers of places. Comparing spatial patterns of robbery, evidence from Western and Eastern European city. Then we have found again the study of Sherman et al. So this is a seminal study of crime, predatory crimes. So let's cite this because this is a seminal study. We've cited this earlier, but we can cite it again because this is a seminal study. Even though it was published in 1989, but we can still cite it because it is a seminal study. There's no restriction about that. Of course, we should cite more recent ones, but we should also not forget that we need to include seminal studies. So, a seminal study found that robberies occur that a similar study in Minneapolis found that robberies that most of robbery incidents occur in only few street networks only. And cite so Sherman et al. 1989. Okay. Subsequent studies also found hotspots of robbery. So let's cite this one. So let's imagine that we have already. So what place did they study? So let's determine. First, let's copy the citation. Let's look at the place. Bronx County, New York. So New York, let's use New York. Robbery in New York. So Herman 2015. What else? How about this one? Study by Connelly. Let's look what place. Indianapolis. So they conducted a study in Indianapolis. Indianapolis. Connelly. So we focus our review on the places because if you remember in our introduction, the writing on introduction to the tutorial, we emphasized there that the gap in the literature is that there has been no study, if not few, in the Philippines about the patterns of robbery in space, time, and targets. So we are studying this. We are studying this particular work, no, on robberies in Dumaguete City. So that's the rationale behind Connelly 2021. What else? So New York City, just same. Boston. So let's cite this. So you can add more places, huh? Braga et al. 2011. Now let's move this to our reference list. Braga, then next Connelly. Transfer Connelly to this portion. Connelly. Then Herman. Insert it here. Increase the size. And Sherman. Oh, we have already the citation for Sherman. If you remember, we cited Sherman earlier in our theoretical frameworks subsection. So here is the citation. Let's go back. So we have this already. We can add more places, but in consideration of the time, we cannot. By the way, these are the strings of study, so move it here. Okay, we have already the first paragraph about hotspots. Now let's go to the second paragraph about hot times. Now let's go to hot times. Robberies tend to cluster in time also. Most specifically, past research found that robberies tend to occur during summer, weekends, at night time, and nighttime and dawn, or night, just nighttime. So let's just imagine that, and the, at nighttime. Just imagine that we have already read the researches. So let's have one sample study. Robbery hotspots. So let's type hot times or temporal. Robbery temporal. Yes, this one. A stab in the dark. Temporal patterns of robbery. Let's have a quick look. By the way, you can download the paper by clicking here, PDF SagePub. But just this time, let's just for the sake of saving time, let us just look at the abstract. So darkness is the key factor related to robbery incidents. So mostly full daylight to full dark increase the police. So daytime, so darkness. So at dark time, robberies commonly occurred in Glasgow, UK, and London. Okay. So let's cite this stab in the dark. Copy the citation. So when you write, you do this over and over again. So it makes you it makes you acquainted on how to write ready your paper. For example, I'll just go directly. Thompson and Bowers found that street robbery tend to occur at nighttime in London and Glasgow. I forgot the date, 2013. Okay, so that's the one study feature. Then let's move. Let's move this citation. Bowers. So place it here. Thompson. So let's go here. Thompson. Let's go back. Then we look for other studies. Testing for temporal differentiated relation among potentially criminology places, census block for street robbery counts. So let's take a quick look on the abstract. Then assessing the value of law of crime across different temporal scales. Case with intersection of urban crime. Okay. This one was conducted in Philadelphia. Robberies. Support for the crime theory. Okay. So it does not really state about the specific finding on the crime. Okay. So what if they just assume that these findings were supportive of the opportunity perspective? So, for example, let's cite this one. What if they state that most of robberies were committed in the during weekends? Let's just assume. Let's just assume some studies also found that robberies typically occur during weekends. Haberman and Radcliffe, 2015. During weekends and summer. Let's look for another one. Let's cite this. Just imagine that this research found that robberies typically occur during summer. Group Basic and Mac, 2008. Then let's add this study by Newton. Typically during weekends in let's just state Philadelphia, then on summer in mm, let's try Germany. So just making it up, just hypothetical, huh? Don't do this when you write. You should read the article first before citing them. So Haberman Grubisic, and for example, this another study has found that robberies typically occur at dawn. So cite Newton for this one. Newton and Felson. By the way, and use ampersand when it is parenthetical citation. But when it's outside the parentheses, it is a narrative type of citation. Use the actual word and, but use the symbol ampersand for and when it is parenthetical citation. So let's move this citation now. Where shall we place it? So we got Haberman is the first to be Haberman. Grubisic first. Grubisic. Okay, Haberman. Oh, no. Haberman and Radcliffe, 2015. Ah, the same. We have already We have already entry for Haberman and Radcliffe, so let's delete this. So what we have to transfer now is only Newton. Is it? Let's go to Newton here. Increase the size. Go back. So we have already the second paragraph, the hot times. Now let's go to the hot products. Finally, robberies are also committed non-randomly across targets. Robbers commonly target cash, gadgets. Let's just assume these are the common targets: cash, gadget, cash and gadgets. So here, robbery, hot products, items. Okay, click search. Automated teller machines and robbery. Products of focus on crime prevention. Portable electronics and transit goods stolen from the person. So portable electronic. Bus robberies. Electronic items, so the same cell phones. Apple picking. So Apple devices. So let's start with this one. Hot products cash. Now in automated teller machines. Most of robberies in this place were committed against persons who have just withdrawn from the automated teller machines. What place? New York City and Los Angeles. So for example, cite it. Click cite, then copy the citation. Garrett and Clark, then 2003. Garrett and Clark found that robbers in Los Angeles typically targeted automated teller machines to steal targeted persons who had just withdrawn, or persons withdrawing from automated teller machines. Okay. Also, let's add another study. This study. Portable electronics and trends in goods stolen. So, about portable electronics. So, one of the hot items. Thomson study based. Also, Thomson 2017 also found that robbers commonly targeted portable electronics in New York. The same type of targets were targeted. The same type type of goods were targeted in some another study. Brazil. Cite this. Study by Oliveira Natarajan. In Brazil. And cite the authors. Oliveira 2019. Okay, there you have it. About to finish our literature review in one sitting. Where shall we place it? Caret, so letter G. Carets here. Oliveira. Oliveira, then Thomson. Let's go to T. Thomson. Okay. So we are about to finish our literature review. Let's go now to the research conducted in the Philippines. So let's have a recap first before we finish this. So first, in the literature review, the first part is the theoretical framework about environmental criminology and opportunity theories. Then the second part, the research on patterns of robbery. So the research that are related to our study, about the hotspots, hot times, then hot products, because we focus in our hypothetical study in these three variables: hotspots of robbery, hot times of robbery. Then we also focus on the hot products, the targets of robbery. Then let's now go to the research of robbery in the Philippines. So this is very crucial because what we will find in this study will be the niche of our study, especially the gap of these studies, because it makes, when there are gaps in the studies in the Philippines about robbery, we should fill in those gaps. And if our study can fill in those gaps, our study will be publishable. They will be accepted. No, they will be accepted for publication in journals. In other words, it will make our study valuable, important, in other words. So let's start. So there are three portions of this subsection, robbery in the Philippines. We have overview of robbery, Then we have individual and social studies, because I wanted to determine what are the correlates of robbery also. So I did not intend to go directly to the patterns of robbery. We can go directly to the patterns of robbery, but to make things more comprehensive about robberies in the Philippines, so I include individual and social studies. Although not, it's not the target of our study, hypothetical study, because we target the opportunity perspective, but it's good for us to include these types of study to create a more comprehensive overview of robberies in the Philippines. So let's start with first with the overview of robbery. What is robbery in the Philippines? So it's important to define robbery in the Philippines. There are many forms of robbery in the Philippines. So the types of robbery in the Philippines. So we can find this in the revised penal code, Act 3815. Am I correct? Act 3815, revised penal code. Yes, I'm correct. So let's go. So robbery in the Philippines. So if you remember the definition of robbery, so you can define it here. Robbery in the Philippines. In the Philippines, robbery is defined as the taking of personal property belonging to another person without his consent through the use of violence, intimidation. You can edit this now if you want. So Act 3815. So let's cite Act 3815. So let's go here, Act, the revised penal code. The revised penal code of the Philippines. Act number 3815. Okay, let's go back. There are two major types of robbery in the country. Robbery with violence and intimidation against persons, and robbery through robbery with the use of force upon things. Okay. However, robbery of automobiles or motor vehicles are termed as carnapping, and in this study we do not include carnapping incidents. So statistics. Let's cite some statistics. Remember that we have already cited earlier the statistics on robbery in our tutorial how to use the or how to write the introduction. So we cited the Philippine National Police, crime statistics to pass here. So let's cite them. So the Philippine National Police citation 2021 to pass 2022. Let's remember them and cite them here. So robbery incidents in the country have been increasing. For instance, there were only 2,000 robberies in 2015, but this increased to 4,000 in 2018. And further increased to 6,000 in 2020. So let us cite PNP 2021 to pass 2022. Okay, there you have it. You have already the first paragraph on the overview of robberies in the Philippines. The definition of robbery. Then we have also the types of robbery. So this specifies what are the incidents that are included in our study. So let's go to other studies. Previous studies of robberies in the Philippines that uses individual perspective and social perspective. So opposite to our study. So let's search robbery. You can include the search term Philippines, robbery, and individual or factors. That one, factors. Panel data estimation of crime rates. Okay, crime rates, the demographic factors, economic factors, social. Okay, we can include that. Let's just assume that it's relevant to the topic. So you can really see that we have really very few studies of robbery, event of crime against property, probabilistic, graphical. Very few. Alcoholism. Oh, there we have alcoholism. Okay, so this study alcoholism. So let's assume that alcoholism affect robbery. There are very few studies of robbery in the Philippines. Some of these studies focused on individual and social correlates. For instance, individual study. That's here. instance. What study was that? Salas and Hinlo. Salas and Hinlo. What date? What date is this? The citation is not complete also because there's no year. So let's take a look. What date? When was this published? No publication date. No publication date. Okay. In instances like this, you can go to the papers that cited this paper. So you can investigate. Now how they cited it. So let's look at click cited by. So these are the papers that cited it. This one. Let's look for Salas. Oh, no date. ND. No date. So let's, if there's no date, just place ND. ND, no date. Salas. Salas and Hinlo found that alcoholism alcohol consumption increases robbery incidents across the country. But we can include these now. Copy link address. Retrieved from. So that's then here place ND. No date. No date. That's Salas. Now let's go back to the first study that we found. Panel data estimation of crime rates. Okay, that's cited. So you can see that there are very few studies that include robbery, and they do not really focus on robbery. Also, Gelado and Tan Cruz 2004 and Tan Cruz 2004 found that social and economic factors influenced robbery rates in the country. Robbery rates. So individual, the social factors here. Let's move it here, social studies. Then copy the citation. Quilado and Salas. Let's go to this portion, insert it here. Quilado. Then increase the size. Salas. Cut Salas. Let's go to letter S. Salas. Okay. We are done with the first two paragraphs for this last subsection. Now we are into the last paragraph. So we are now in the opportunity perspective portion of our study. So let us try to look for studies that uses opportunity perspective, the patterns of robbery, if we can see. No? So let's change the search terms. Philippines robbery, hotspots. Go. We have here by Rubio. Wait. Oh, hotspots. We have also here Tabangin. Maritime robbery. We will not use that. We have robbery across schools, among schools. Okay, let's cite this Kamanaba area, and that's places. In what place is this? Let's start first with this Kamanaba. Let's cite this one. Rubio et al. So finally, there are very scant studies that that examined the patterns that used environmental perspective and there are very few studies that use environmental perspective and examine the patterns of robbery in the Philippines. Patterns of robbery. So, nevertheless, Rubio et al. Found that robberies tend to converge in central business districts in the Kamanava area. The date is 2018. Also, Tabangin et al. Tabangin found that robberies were non-randomly concentrated in the city of Baguio. Tabangin et al. 2011. Concentrated Tabangin 2010. How about hot times? Let's look for hot times. So let's change the search terms into hot times or temporal. Oh, we have here our previous study. So let's cite this. Okay. I think this does not show the robbery, but let's just assume there's no robbery. Okay, let's cite this kabaong. We can cite also this one, our study, previous study. By Barrera et al. Same patterns, cross space was found by Barrera et al. In Dumaguete City, 2013. No, this is different. This space Barrera et al. 2013. Please 2013. Here, place it here. Same patterns, pattern across space. They also found that robberies tended to occur at night time in the city. Said city. Oh no, it's not. How about hot products? Hot products. No study on hot products. Yes, no study on hot products. So let's just move these reference list entries. Visit. Review Tabangin. Scope to QR. Oh. We have already review. Now we have Tabangin. Okay, Tabangin. There you have it. So gaps in literature. So what can you see now? What are the gaps in the literature or the things that our previous research have not yet done? First is, the most obvious is there were no studies. So as we have reviewed, there were no studies that examine the hot products of robberies in the Philippines. No studies, not based on our review of previous literature. Also, there are very few studies on hotspots and hot times. So we need, and also there are two studies that were published in the early 2010. So we need more recent data. So we should identify these gaps and also mention them here. So these studies, the findings of these studies were limited in nature. Were limited Although there were few studies on hotspots and hot times, there were no studies found there were no studies on hot products. Most importantly, most of the past there is a need for more recent data on robbery, as the current pandemic might have influenced the patterns of robbery. Okay. So those the gaps in the literature that we have identified. Now, how the current study will address this gap. So this study will attempts to address these gaps by examining the hotspots, times, and products of robberies in Dumaguete City from 2020 to 2022. The study also uses more advanced methods in examining hotspots, whereas previous studies in the country used simplistic methods of portraying hotspots. The current study uses advanced spatial statistics. The details of this will be discussed in the next section, in the methods section. So we have now the hypothetical literature review of our hypothetical study entitled Hotspots, Times and Targets of Robberies in Dumaguete City, Negros Oriental, Philippines. So we have the theoretical framework about the environmental criminology and the theories. We have environmental criminology, first paragraph, second paragraph, the first theory on rational choice perspective. Then we have also the next theory on the routine activity approach. The third theory, crime pattern theory. Then we also had a review on the patterns of robbery in terms of hotspots. So we reviewed the past research on hotspots, then hot times, then hot products. So this time we will now synthesize them into our paper. So you remember we have already written in our previous tutorial, the introduction of our paper. We had the introduction. Now we have the literature review. So just add now the literature review after the introduction. So after the introduction, after the last paragraph of the introduction, so you add here what you have written, as your literature review. So hopefully this tutorial has helped you. If you have comments, suggestions, if you have queries, just post your queries in the comment section of this video. Thank you very much. Have a good day and God bless us all.